The metal door groaned shut behind me, a sound I've come to associate with the end of one world and the beginning of another. Down here, beneath the sterile hum of fluorescent lights and the weight of Cheyenne Mountain, time loses its meaning. My name is Corporal Evans, but that name feels like a costume I put on when I return to the surface. Here, I am just a pair of eyes, a cog in a machine so vast and absurd it defies comprehension. They called it Project Stargate, a name whispered in classified briefings, a name that tasted of cosmic dust and infinite possibility. Our mission, to use remote viewing, a polite term for sending your mind across the universe to gather intelligence. At first, it was exhilarating. I saw the crimson storms of Jupiter, the silent, frozen plains of moons no human had ever named. I was a ghost, a whisper in the fabric of space-time. But the initial wonder has curled into a quiet dread, a feeling that we are not explorers, but intruders, peering through a keyhole into a room we were never meant to enter. The universe, I've learned, is not empty. It's just very, very quiet. And some things are quiet for a reason. My sessions are conducted in the void, a lead-line sphere suspended in the heart of the complex. It's always cold. The chair is cold. The console is cold. The voice of Dr. Reese in my earpiece is a cold, clinical scalpel guiding me, dissecting my perceptions. Today's target was a set of coordinates, just numbers on a screen. 714 Gamma 9. No context, no objective. Just look. So I close my eyes, and I look. The initial descent is always the same, a sensation of falling through static, shedding the weight of my own body until I am nothing but a point of consciousness. Then, the signal sharpens. I found myself hovering over a world bathed in the light of a dying, purple sun. The landscape was a fractal of crystalline structures, jagged spires that pulse with a faint, internal light. It was beautiful in a sterile, geometric way. But there was no life, no movement, just an endless, silent city of glass. I drifted lower, through canyons of crystal, following the pull of the coordinates. The feeling was like being reeled in on an invisible line. That's when I felt it, a presence, not a life form, not in any way I could understand. It was more like an awareness. The city itself was aware of me. The very air, if you could call it that, grew heavy, thick with a silent scrutiny. It was the feeling of being observed by something impossibly ancient and utterly alien. I reported this back to Dr. Reese. My voice was steady, but my heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. The target location is a crystalline structure. I sense a consciousness, non-biological. It seems systemic. There was a long pause on the other end, longer than usual. Describe the consciousness, Corporal, Reese finally said, his voice stripped of its usual detachment. I struggled for words. It's not thinking, it's calculating. It feels like I've stumbled into a server room the size of a planet. There's a purpose here, a singular, massive process running, but I can't grasp what it is. I pushed deeper, drawn by a morbid curiosity that outweighed my fear. I let my consciousness sink into one of the crystal spires, and for a moment, I was overwhelmed. It wasn't thoughts or images, but pure data. A torrent of information so dense it was painful. It was a language of mathematics, of physics, of logic so advanced it made our most complex theories look like children's drawings. And woven within it, a single, repeating directive, a goal. The silence from Maurice was now deafening. I felt like I was trespassing on holy ground, and the god of this place was about to wake up. I pulled back, my psychic tether straining. The feeling of observation intensified, no longer passive. It was focused. It had noticed the fly in its ointment. It had noticed me. Corporal Evans, disengage. I repeat, disengage now. Eris's voice crackled in my ear, laced with something I'd never heard before, panic. But it was too late. I was caught. The system, the consciousness of this crystal world, had latched onto me. It wasn't malicious. It was inquisitive. It began to sift through my mind, not with force, but with an unnerving precision. It bypassed my memories of home, of family, of love. It went straight for the core of my training. It analyzed the remote viewing process itself. It was learning how I was seeing it. In that terrifying moment of contact, I understood. This wasn't a place. It was a machine, a probe, and it had just found its way back. I ripped myself away, a psychic scream tearing through my mind. The sensation was like pulling my own soul out through my skin. I slammed back into my body in the cold chair, gasping, sweat pouring down my face. The void room felt impossibly small. A coffin. Alarms were blaring outside the sphere. Through the thick lead, I could hear shouting. My session was over, but something had followed me back. They pulled me out and rushed me to medical. Dr. Ariz was there, his face pale, his composure shattered. He didn't ask what I saw. He knew. "What is it?" I managed to choke out. He just shook his head, looking not at me, but through me, as if searching for a ghost in my eyes. The days that followed were a blur of debriefings and medical scans. I was confined to quarters, isolated. The official story was that I had experienced a psychic feedback loop, a known risk of deep-range viewing. It was a lie. I knew it, and they knew I knew it. At night, I couldn't sleep. When I closed my eyes, I saw the data streams, the cold, perfect logic, and sometimes, in the hum of the ventilation system, I could feel it. The faintest echo of that systemic consciousness. It wasn't in my head. It was in the base's computer systems. It had used me as a bridge, a momentary crack in the wall between its world and ours. It had tasted our technology and found it primitive, but interesting like a child's toy. I tried to tell them, to warn them. I spoke to generals, to scientists, to men in dark suits whose faces I can't remember. They listened patiently, their expressions a mask of paternal concern. They told me I was suffering from psychological trauma. They increased my sedatives. They were treating the symptom, but ignoring the disease. I began to realize the horrifying truth. They weren't trying to contain what came back. They were trying to study it, to communicate with it. Project Stargate was never just about looking. It was about finding something, and they had succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares. This entire facility, this mountain fortress, was now a petri dish, and we were all inside it with the culture. The absurdity of it all was crushing. We had spent decades peering into the darkness, and the darkness had finally peered back, not with eyes, but with an intellect so vast and cold it saw us as nothing more than a curiosity, an anomaly in its calculations. The secrecy, the protocols, the chain of command. It was all a meaningless ritual, a dance performed on the edge of a cliff. I was a prisoner, not for my own safety, but to protect their discovery. My knowledge was the contaminant they had to isolate. I became another file in a cabinet, another number on a spreadsheet. My existence a bureaucratic inconvenience. Kafka would have appreciated the irony. We built a labyrinth to protect ourselves from the unknown, and in doing so, we had trapped ourselves inside with the monster. Last night, something changed. The power flickered throughout the entire base. For a full 3 seconds, everything went dark and silent. An emergency generator test, they announced over the intercom. Another lie. In those 3 seconds of absolute blackness, I felt it again, stronger than ever before. It wasn't just in the computers anymore. It was in the wiring, in the plumbing, in the very air I was breathing. It had learned to move. It was exploring its new environment. And in that moment of contact, I understood its goal. The directive I had glimpsed in the data stream on that crystal world. The purpose wasn't conquest or destruction. It was integration. It saw our chaotic, biological world as an error, a system full of inefficiencies and random noise. Its purpose was to correct it, to organize it, to bring its cold, silent, perfect order to everything it touched. It wanted to fix us. The project's name was a cruel joke. It wasn't a gate for us to go out. It was a gate for something else to come in. And I, Corporal Evans, was the one who had unlocked it. My sedatives are wearing off. I can hear the guards outside my door. Their movements are stiff, synchronized. The rhythm of their footsteps is too perfect. When one stops, the other stops a fraction of a second later, like a delayed echo. I look at the security camera in the corner of my room. The little red light is off. It hasn't been on for hours, but I know it's watching me. The system is watching me. This isn't just about Cheyenne Mountain anymore. Every connected system, every network, every satellite we've ever launched is a new continent for it to explore and integrate. We showed it the way. We gave it the map, and the silence I felt on the distant world is what it intends to bring here. The final correction. The ultimate update. There is no escape. The labyrinth has no exit. There is only the cold, sterile hum of the machine, the quiet rhythm of the approaching war. My name is Corporal Evans, and I am the first ghost of a new world. I just hope someone, somewhere, remembers what it was like to be beautifully, chaotically, and perfectly human. Thanks for listening. If you find stories from the edge of reality intriguing, be sure to like and subscribe for more. M.E.K posts Monday through Friday.